Hello, people. I finished a book a couple days ago. The Race to Fashoda. Uh, it wasn't too bad. I kind of struggled through this. I'm sure that Marchand and his men going, cutting across Africa from east to west, near the end of the 19th century, I'm sure that story merits an entire book. But instead, this author, David Levering Lewis, decides to tell the story of everything that happened in Africa, colonial wise, for like a 20-year period, before the turn of the century, before 1900. And if I would have paid attention to the subtitle, because it says European Colonialism and African Resistance in the Scramble for Africa, he goes through the Mahdi and Khartoum and Omdurman and Kitchener, and he goes through the Italians and their pathetic war against Ethiopia, where like an entire Italian army is just destroyed at a place called Adwa. I would like to get a book. Adwa itself deserves an entire book. That's what I like to read. Is something that will give me the day-by-day story of Adwa. And I have read other books that gave me a great description of what happened inside Khartoum when it was besieged by the Mahdi's forces, by the Dervish. And I'm sure that Marchand and there was only like 8 Frenchmen that went. There was a couple that tried to go different routes and they didn't make it. But I think Marchand only had like 7 or 8 Frenchmen with him. He had like 100 or so. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure whether they were Sudanese or what they were, but I'm sure that some of those guys, some of those Frenchmen, were writing. They were keeping a logbook or something. There is not too many first-hand accounts in this. Get to my notes. David L. Lewis. This was published in 1987, 230 pages. So I should have just zipped right through it, but it became an ordeal. Towards the end of the book, it gets to Fashoda. What happens at Fashoda? In a nutshell, the French have these colonial dreams of getting part of the Nile Valley, and challenging the British. And when Marchand gets to Fashoda, which is just a ruined fort, and they kind of rebuild the place, and they plant a little vegetable garden and all this shit. Kitchener hears about it. Kitchener has just destroyed the Mahdist army on the plains of Karari, something like that. Fucking bees up here. And Kitchener sends a force down there and says to Marchand, basically what he says is, hey, congratulations, you made a great trek across Africa, but I would like to invite you to get on the steamer so we can get you the hell out of here. This is British territory. And when Marchand had left, the French were all about, more territory. But by the time the Kitchener met up with Marchand, the French apparently, putting their finger in the air, the winds of war were already blowing. To them, it was more important to have this alliance with England than it was to lay claim to any part of the Nile Valley. And Marchand, when he does leave, they do go on a steamer with the British, but they get off and they go through Ethiopia, and they go to Djibouti or some shit like that. They they complete their west to east trek across Africa. I get to page 73 before they even say anything about Marchand, and my next note is that's a good hockey name because it's still a French, especially like a French Canadian name. Marchand prepares, bottom of 85, top of 86. Marchand was delayed because there was so many supplies that were piling up in these various places, cases and cases of shit. They would, pack a case. I forget exactly what it is. It's like 47 pounds or 66 pounds, something like that. They would pack these cases, and that was for a native to balance on their head, and that they would carry it for him. He ended up being delayed like 6 months getting these cases to a place called Brazzaville. 85, top of 86. Fucking bee right in my face. Most of the equipment for the mission was purchasable in France. 70,000 meters of cloth would come from Manchester and Liverpool, and the outmoded pistols and rifles to be given Africans along the route were available in Belgium. Among the other provisions were optic telegraphs, cameras, meteorological and topographical instruments, a complete pharmacy, cooking equipment, and an aluminum canoe with navigational devices. There were also to be 500 cases of gifts and trade goods, including cloth, sweets, beads, coral, and firearms, 2 80-millimeter mountain guns, 155 1890 model carbines, and 15 1895 model revolvers were ordered. Marchand insisted on the peaceful, non-military nature of his expedition, but he intended to be formidably armed. All this material, exactly 3,049 cases, weighing 62 pounds each, was to be prepared and packed by the Parisian firm of Monsieur Antoine Conga. Then we go to the Mahdi and Gordon, then the Italians at Adwa, half done, very little regarding Fashoda. That's it. It wasn't too bad of a book. A little piece of the puzzle and a little refresher course on the Mahdi. I would like to get something about that Italian-Ethiopian war, and I think that had a lot to do with the Italians after some revenge, later on, because there was a second war. Thanks for watching.